Don't you think it's a hoax? They're obviously crazy attention whores.
In a lot of ways, yeah. The point of the video is that no one gave Richard Heaney a chance to show his side of the story. It was a fucking dog pile by the media. And I wanted to present his side of the story and let people decide for themselves. Personally, I think it's about 60-40 chance that it's a hoax.
In which direction?
I think it's ever so slightly more likely that this is a hoax. What do you think?
Do I think it's a hoax? I did until you started researching this.
Yeah.
Basically.
That's the other important thing to consider. So when I picked up this story, I did not think I would be trying to show his side of the story. I thought I would be making fun of a guy for about 5 minutes, and it would be a short video.
Which would have been very easy. There was a lot of really good footage of him, like,
he's a
being
fucking
an ass.
living meme.
It was fantastic. I actually got pretty sad that we had to cut all the ads, and
yeah,
that was only part of the bear scratch.
Oh god,
the shakedown.
The shakedown is so good. Oh my god, I'll put it on the second channel as well. But I just started digging, and every time I started finding a new source, every time I started looking at the official documents, I would go, oh, there's a little pang of doubt there. Oh, that's not very hoax-like. Oh, he wouldn't do that if this was all a fucking ruse or a publicity stunt. And all of those things started adding up. And then I turned to you and I basically said, I'm not so sure this was a hoax.
Yeah.
I think I have to change the angle of the story. I think I got to redo everything.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think 60-40 is probably a good sort of bet.
I talk about how all they really had were those 10 words. We did this for the hoax. That's basically what the police said. They said that the thing that aroused their suspicion was that they were reality TV stars and that Falcon said that thing during an interview. Well, what the fuck? Good detective work, buddy.
And something you also cut out was, before they interviewed the parents and gave them polygraphs, how did they get them to the precinct?
Yeah, so they said, hey, well, there's just a few more T's to cross, a few more I's to dot, and you'll be on your way, no problem. And then they got there, and they said, oh, by the way, you're under arrest. Now you have to take a polygraph, and if you fail the polygraph, we're going to start questioning you. And that's exactly what happened. And so they separated them off into two different interview rooms, and started pressing them.
How would Falcon survive if the balloon was full of helium? Wouldn't he suffocate?
Yes. So
the follow-up to that was, why would you spend $2 million to, hunt down a dead kid, basically?
Okay. So whether it was possible or not for Falcon to survive this adventure in the balloon, I don't think particularly matters. We know that the balloon was leaking. So in that cabin, it's basically just a cardboard flap. That's where all the helium was escaping from. So, there's every chance that if he was in that balloon, he'd be able to try and breathe out of that, a gap in the flap. But it doesn't really matter, because if Falcon had suffocated and was floating around, you wouldn't just go, oh, never mind, we'll just sort of pick him up when he lands, and then we'll just bury him there, You don't do that. You still got to chase him down. And also, the balloon is headed straight for the airport, so they need to chase him down regardless to make sure that it doesn't get, caught up in someone's helicopter blades or a jet's engine or God knows what else.
Also, if the coroner finds that, if you had have caught him a bit sooner, he wouldn't have suffocated.
Exactly. Yeah. There's a million reasons to be tracking this balloon, even if the kid is dead.
Is there room for him to sit inside the balloon? Wouldn't he just fall out the bottom?
So no, it's 4 feet in diameter, which is fairly large compared to a 6-year-old boy. And we know that he wouldn't have fallen out the bottom because the police actually tested for that. So what they did is they took the balloon and they suspended it on wires, and then they put a 37-pound weight on the inside of the cabin. And amazingly, with duct tape, with just some wire and some string, this whole thing kept intact. The bottom didn't fall out. The 6 millimeters of plywood was enough to apparently hold 37 pounds.
There are a lot of comments that had issues with your calculations, just varying little things, and sea level, and it was this many pounds, not this many pounds. What's your response to that?
Sure, there are many things to pick apart in my calculations, so I'll start with how I came to them. I calculated the balloon as a perfect ellipsoid, and I calculated the cabin as a perfect cylinder, and then I added those two volumes together for a total weight. Obviously, that's not quite precise for a couple of reasons. It was much more of a saucer shape than an ellipsoid shape, but at the same time, there was also, it didn't properly inflate, but a sort of cone at the top. And, there are other points as well, which is that the plastic can stretch a little bit, so you might be able to get some extra volume in it. And also, the lift potential of helium, for sure, it decreases as you go up in elevation, and Colorado is famously a place of fairly high elevation. So, absolutely, there's a lot to contest with the calculations. But I don't think that matters. See, what I was trying to prove is that it's within the realm of possibility. And if it's within that sort of margin of error, then it is also plausible that Richard Heaney could think that his son really is in this balloon. If we did the calculations and we figured out that it wouldn't lift the boy by like 30 pounds, it was just so far off, then you go, well, Richard Heaney knew. He couldn't have possibly believed that Falcon was in there, and this is definitely a hoax. But that is not the case. It is entirely plausible that he could have thought that his son was in there.
If this did ever go to court, the idea of beyond a reasonable doubt is what this whole case would be based on, because you cannot prove one way or the other, and so you would have to find him
that's right.
Not guilty.
Sorry, just for a point of technicality, I think in these sorts of cases it's actually not beyond a reasonable doubt. I think it's preponderance of guilt.
I should have put in that question. Do you have a lawyer diploma?
No, but I have some Doritos with me. Please go on.
What were the electrical devices in the balloon? What was Richard's experiment?
Okay, this is actually super interesting, and in some ways I'm pretty sorry that I cut it. But it's actually kind of complicated, so people would have just been so confused if I had left it in. So, Richard Heaney is in some ways a kind of a good engineer. The Heaney duty device he's got is actually a really good idea. But he kind of doesn't know how the science works. So he had this theory that storms, tornadoes, and other weather phenomena are caused by electromagnetism and not hot and cold pressure systems or currents colliding or any of that sort of thing. So he had done previous experiments, and this one was basically you create a balloon that has a skin that conducts electricity, so hence the alfoil skin. It isn't just there to look like a UFO. It serves a practical purpose. The electronics that he had on board were designed to emit 1 million electron volts for 1 minute every 5 minutes to this skin. This balloon, tethered to the ground, could then be observed. So he thought, okay, I have this hypothesis that weather phenomena are caused by electromagnetism. I should be able to observe something around this balloon if my hypothesis is correct. So he thought one of two things would happen. Either that he would be able to see a change in the ambient weather around the balloon, maybe the air, something like that, or he would see that maybe the balloon would wobble slightly to the left, to the right, forward, backwards, whatever. And then if that was the case, he could maybe program the skin in such a way that you could send impulses to the right side or the left side, and then you could use electricity just to steer the craft. That was his theory. Of course, it wouldn't work, but that doesn't mean it wasn't sort of interesting and sort of explain a lot about the electrical devices on board, and also why he was in such panic about his son being in that balloon, because it wasn't just that he was going to fall out. He was also concerned that his son would be electrocuted, but I had to cut that element from the 911 call as well. He mentions that.
Why did Richard get a different sentence than Mayumi?
Well, there are a couple of reasons. First is that he really took the fall for most of it. So he got charged with 3 different counts. I can't remember exactly what they are. Mayumi only 2. So in some ways he took the fall. The other is that judges do this fairly often because it's just the practical thing. the mother takes care of the kids. The father goes out to work, and he was on 60 days of work release, so he can still go out and earn for the family. But if you've got your mother locked away in jail, it's actually pretty hard for the dad to go out to work. So it just makes sense that it was arranged that way.
Was the raw footage and the 911 call edited?
Yes, I'll tell you exactly how they're edited. The raw footage is broken down into 4 different videos that I was able to dig up online. And some of them are part of other interviews. Some of them are from recap shows. So I gathered everything I could and put it in there. What you did miss that I managed to get hold of is there's a scene where Falcon says, "I'm going to sneak inside," in reference to the balloon. The reason I left that out is because it was impossible to tell whether it was staged or not staged. So it just kind of muddied the water. You could not tell one way or another, and so I didn't want to present something that could really appear like evidence for their side, but I just didn't want to add too many circumstantial things here. The only bit that's been edited out from that raw scene from the liftoff is when the camera angle changes and Richard Heaney says, "You didn't put the fucking tether down, Jesus Christ." When he says that to Mayumi, there's about 4 seconds before that where he says, "Something, something, something, Mayumi." And the thing is, I couldn't figure out what any of the words were in the sentence. So I had a couple problems because everything else was subtitled, and I wanted subs for that too, but I listened to it maybe 200 times, and I just couldn't figure it out. And also the 911 call, but that was merely for the sake of the viewer, because it's like an 8-minute call. The woman asked the same asinine questions again, and I didn't think people wanted to sit through that. So
and you can find that online.
Yeah, so the full version you can find online. I'll add a link.
And it's infuriating.
Yeah, it's really quite annoying. She's got no idea what's happening. So they've said to the first operator, there's a flying saucer, it's helium, he's lifting off. And then the second operator picks up and she goes, "Oh, it's a plane?" And they go, "No, a flying saucer." And she goes, "Oh, okay, so the plane and the flying saucer are gone." You go, "Fucking hell, lady. My son's dying, maybe. I don't know."
Why didn't you mention the second interview where Falcon threw up?
I didn't really think it mattered. So basically what happens is, Falcon gives that first interview where he says, "We did this for the show." The next evening with the same network, the interviewer goes, "What the fuck happened yesterday with that question? What did you mean?" And Falcon throws up while Richard Heaney is giving the answer. And he's genuinely throwing up. It's pretty gross. And then he's like, "Oh, Mom, you need to take me to the bathroom." And then Mayumi takes Falcon off the set. And Mayumi's actually still mic'd up, so she doesn't know that everyone else can hear. But it's so obvious that she's really just helping him throw up in the laboratory. So it's not pleasant, and it doesn't really have anything that bears on the rest of the case. So I just cut it. I mean, the kid said something that basically sent his dad to jail. You'd be pretty nervous the next time you were talking on television as well.
Why ignore Mayumi's confession?
Well, I think it's important to note the details around the confession. So they interviewed each of the 3 children several times, and they got nothing. They interviewed Richard Heaney. They got nothing. They gave Richard Heaney a polygraph. They got nothing. Apparently, Mayumi failed a polygraph, and then they started prodding her, and she confessed. Well, she's kind of a meek woman. She's not really tough. She doesn't speak English that well. You got a policeman in your face saying things like, you could go back to Japan. It's not hard to crack someone like that if you say, "Look, just tell us what happened and, we'll make sure that the judge goes easy on you," or whatever. But I think the critical point is what's in the affidavit, because they had to sign this in order to get the guilty plea, and 2 details we know at least are false. That calls into question the credibility of the rest of the document as well. So if you can't trust some things in the affidavit, I don't think you can trust all of the affidavit. If you can't trust the affidavit, there is no confession.
Has the police chief been investigated?
No, but at this point I don't think he should be. Look, if there's any lesson to take away from this video, it's that we shouldn't be too quick to impugn the reputation of someone. So until there's really some strong evidence that this guy deliberately went after Richard Heaney. It's just my speculation, and we shouldn't start trying to drag his name through the mud.
Why don't you try to interview Richard Heaney?
Well, I tried to send him a couple of emails, but the old emails that I found on Google just gave me an automatic denial response. So I haven't been able to get in contact. But if somehow he's hearing this, please get in touch.
One of the other questions I kept coming across was, so did you enjoy doing these unsolved internet mysteries, and do you want to keep doing these sort of videos?
Yeah, look, no, it's absolutely fascinating, and I think other people like it too. And there are so many other sort of unsolved things, or things that people are assume one way and might actually have a second side to, that I'd love to cover. Look, this video took me about 3 weeks to make, and it's just me, and I'm trying to do some changes to the Patreon and get some tier rewards and that sort of thing, so I can really bring on a second person and be making videos much more frequently. It'd be my aim to make 2 a week would be the sort of a long-term goal there. Maybe not at sort of 15 minutes length, but certainly at sort of 5 to 10 minutes. So please consider supporting the channel. It's grown really fast, and that's been because of everyone who's subscribed and helped out, and there's already like 100 patrons already, and I'm fucking blown away by the support, and thank you very much. And
shout out to the Discord for all that.
yeah, there's a Discord as well, by the way. We've got like 4,500 people there now. It's ridiculous. It's a lot of fun. We watch shitty movies. We shitpost a lot. It's a pretty good time. Anyway, there'll be a link for that too, and yeah, please do consider supporting the channel, because yeah, it helps a lot.